Tonight at 10, the Health Secretary warns the NHS is facing its biggest challenge since the pandemic as flu cases soar.
There are patients in every cubicle, a lot of activity happening. One ambulance has just rocked up.
England is the worst hit, with hundreds admitted to hospital every day. We report from one hospital in Leicester as the pressure intensifies. Also tonight, the head of NATO says Europe must prepare for war with Russia, saying the conflict is at our door. More than 1,000 French police officers deployed in Marseille, France's second biggest city, amid violent drug wars between gangs. And Luke Littler's fans are out in force as the teenager defends his title at the World Darts Championship.
And on BBC London, the cost of travelling on the Tube Overground and the Elizabeth line is to go up next year above inflation. But bus fares are frozen. We'll have the details.
All the way through. Good evening. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says the NHS in England is facing a challenge unlike any it has seen since the pandemic, with hundreds of people with flu currently being admitted to hospital every day. NHS bosses say there's an unprecedented wave that's leaving health services facing a worst-case scenario in the run-up to Christmas. Every day last week, more than 2,600 patients on average were in hospital with flu in England. That's a jump of 55% on the week before. And tonight, the Health Secretary has warned that the numbers could triple over the coming weeks. Flu cases are also rising in Scotland, with nearly 1,000 people admitted to hospital in the first week of December. In Wales, the number admitted with flu that same week was up 12%. That was just over 160 people. Northern Ireland saw new flu cases jump by almost a quarter to more than 1,000. Well, tonight we'll look at how bad flu is this year compared to previous years and what all this means for next week's planned doctors' strike. Our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, is here. But first, our health editor, Hugh Pym, has spent 2 days at Leicester Royal Infirmary to see how much pressure the hospital is under.
He's getting intubated now. There are patients in every cubicle, a lot of activity happening. One ambulance has just rocked up. Ellie's the consultant here. Has to be in here.
Yes.
This is the busiest emergency unit in England.
We'll have a look.
Many more beds are needed than are available.
She's got some kind of respiratory virus. She was very tight chest when she came in.
Flu and winter viruses are hitting the unit hard.
This is the asthmatic chap who's on high flow oxygen.
We're seeing a significant increase over the winter months with flu, on both coming into our emergency department and our assessment units.
And how much pressure is that putting on the system?
It's putting a lot of pressure on the system.
Paige has type 1 diabetes. She also has flu. Her blood sugars are dangerously high. Doctors can bring her diabetes under control, but recovering from flu will take longer. As the waits get longer, we see clinical staff getting increasingly frustrated.
Okay.
To make space for the most sick, patients need to be moved between rooms. So what's happening now?
So we have a very busy waiting room. Within those patients, some are needing medical input, but we do see patients who arrive who, for whatever reason, probably could have received their healthcare either from a GP or a pharmacist.
The hospital has got a new system in A&E. Consultants and other senior clinicians near the front door send the less sick patients elsewhere. Some, though, are not happy.
You'll see the glass that we've got around the reception desk here. That was put in following an incident of a patient who got quite angry with the team.
But at the other end of the spectrum, the very ill are also walking in the front door. Saad is the consultant here who picks up the most sick.
You can bring her to room 3, Julie. We can take her around.
As more patients arrive, others wait outside. The sickest patients are taken straight into the emergency department, but there are 7 other vehicles waiting to hand over their patients. The hospital is planning to open up more beds to cope with the likely further surge.
Do you feel you're doing all you possibly can with what you've got?
At this point in time, I feel we are working at the limits of our ability, but undoubtedly over the next couple of months the NHS will become busier and the way in which we work will have to evolve.
Oscar has suspected bronchiolitis.
that out.
A viral bug affecting young children.
Body.
His worried mum was sent here by the GP.
Hey. Oh, good boy. Quick listen at the back. We may just keep you overnight, see how he's at night time, and they're very happy that he's getting better.
And Oscar isn't alone. Winter viruses are putting a strain on young lungs.
The last half an hour, there's been about 30 children who have all arrived. I think it is putting a lot of pressure on the system, and I think every year it seems to be increasingly busier.
Back in the adult emergency department, this is the reality for Julie.
This is our high dependency area, and we've been really struggling for beds. I'm sorry,
no, it's okay.
It's not ideal, but we'll get you into a bed space as soon as we can.
I mean, how long are some of them waiting?
So some of them are waiting 2 days plus.
In the department?
In the department, yes. Yes, I never imagined that it would get to this, that we would have patients, so many patients in the emergency department, and we worry about those patients and the care they're receiving.
But they all know with flu, there could be worse to come.
Well, Hugh is with me, as is our medical editor, Fergus Walsh. First of all, Hugh, strong words from Wes Streeting tonight. He's written in the Times newspaper tomorrow. How much of this is about putting pressure on resident doctors about this planned strike next week?
Well, Sophie, there's an element of that in his piece. He talks about the strike being the Jenga piece that collapses the tower. But he goes on to spell out how seriously he sees the current flu situation. And his officials tell me that there really is high-level concern about what might happen, not what will happen, but what could potentially develop. He says the number of people in hospital could triple by the peak of the pressures. He says it's the most challenging winter potentially for the NHS since the pandemic, and it is an incredibly precarious situation. And I think the worry is, where is this going? Is this early pick-up in flu cases and this surge, is it going to peak early, or could it potentially be quite a high peak and quite a long peak right through the most challenging times of the winter, over Christmas and through the new year and into January particularly? It's the worry about what might happen in the next month or so.
And Fergus Walsh, you've been looking at the figures and how bad it possibly could get, but how it compares to other years.
Yeah, now we should always take flu seriously. It ranges from a mild illness to life-threatening. The simple fact is this flu season has happened about a month earlier than normal. We've got a chart that can illustrate that. You can see a couple of recent flu years, and then that red line is where we are now. Now, we simply don't know how high that red line is going to reach. It could be higher than previous ones, or maybe not. But if it happens over Christmas, that would be very challenging. The advice is for the elderly and vulnerable, get vaccinated. And children as well, it will protect them, but crucially help prevent them passing on the virus to vulnerable people. The virus changes every year. That's why we have an annual flu jab. And the strain has drifted, mutated sufficiently that there's not that much natural immunity out there. But it's not a new strain. The last pandemic we had was swine flu in 2009, and it's not super flu. It's not harder to treat. As for face masks, well, simple surgical face masks are not good at stopping viruses. You really need a properly fitted, tight respirator mask for that. But the simple point is people who are full of virus and ill should not be out. They should stay at home.
Fergus Walsh, Hugh Pym, thank you both. The head of NATO has warned that Europe must prepare for war with Russia. In a speech in Berlin, Mark Rutte told European allies that they are Russia's next target. His stark words came as Ukraine sent the latest draft of a peace deal with Russia to Washington for approval. President Zelensky said any decision to cede territory to Russia as part of the deal would have to be agreed by Ukraine's people through either a referendum or election. Our correspondent, Jonathan Beale, sent this report from Kyiv.
Among Ukrainian troops, there's still little appetite to make concessions to Russia. Many of these are battle-hardened, defending the Donbass in the east. In a brief respite from the fighting, they're training to use drones and robots before they return to the front line. And they're not willing to give up more land.
To give up the land where our blood was spilled, then what would be the meaning of this war? We could have surrendered on the first day.
With the Russians, you shouldn't sign any agreement at all, because everything you sign with them is for naught. They will move on anyway.
Territory remains the biggest obstacle to peace. The original US plan suggested Ukraine giving Russia all of the Donbass. The new revised plan wants Ukraine to withdraw its remaining troops. That land would become a special economic demilitarized zone. President Zelensky has today been discussing the latest proposals with US negotiators, and he's now publicly raised his concerns. He said if one side's forces must withdraw while the other side's forces remain, what exactly will deter the Russian forces from advancing further? Some of his MPs have already ruled it out.
I'm absolutely certain that the vast majority, at least, of Ukrainian people will resolutely say no to this. And if you read Constitution, one of the obligations of citizens of Ukraine is to defend territorial integrity.
And now we need to coordinate everything so that the Americans are fully on the board.
President Zelensky has addressed Europe's coalition of the willing. They too believe it's for Ukraine to decide its own borders. But there's concern the US is losing patience.
The president is extremely frustrated with both sides of this war, and he is sick of meetings just for the sake of meeting. He doesn't want any more talk. He wants action. He wants this war to come to an end.
President Putin says if Ukraine doesn't give up the Donbass, he'll take it by force. Ukraine's been losing ground, but if it rejects this latest deal, it also risks losing American support. Jonathan Beale, BBC News, Kyiv.
Meanwhile, the head of NATO was certainly blunt in his warning about Russia today, saying that many European leaders were too complacent about the threat posed by Russia. Our Europe editor, Katya Adler, joins us from outside the NATO headquarters in Brussels. It was a very hard-hitting speech. How unusual is it for him to speak like that?
Well, Sophie, Mark Rutte is known to favour quite colourful, bombastic language at times. But today he had a message he wanted to send loud and clear to three very different audiences. First of all, to European members of NATO, to the UK, to Italy, to France, Germany and others to say, spend, spend, spend on defence. Not sometime in the future, but now, because Russia's at your door. But he was also talking to Donald Trump in Washington, desperately trying to keep him on side. The US remains NATO's most important and powerful ally. If it walks out of the door of NATO, there's a question mark over the whole organisation and wider security in Europe. And we have heard, as we were hearing there from Jonathan Beale, real impatience from the US president over Ukraine and even questioning whether Europeans can be relied on as allies. Don't give up on us, Mark Rutte was saying today. We will do more for our own defence, just like you asked us to. But finally, he was also speaking to Moscow. Don't even think of invading a NATO nation, he said, because we will be armed and we will be ready. But just last week, we heard from President Putin, Sophie, who said he'd be ready for a war of Europe if it comes to it. Now, of course, you can dismiss this as sabre-rattling from Moscow or bombastic language from NATO. But on the ground, the temperature and the tensions really are rising.
Katya Adler in Brussels, thank you. Now, millions of football fans are scrambling to enter the ballot for tickets for next summer's World Cup in North America. But fans have expressed shock at the price of tickets. The cheapest tickets for the World Cup final are more than £3,000 each. That's a lot more than they were at the last World Cup. England and Scotland fans have until the 13th of January to apply for the ballot, as Joe Linsky reports.
For football supporters, the greatest prize is just to be there. But this World Cup spans 3 countries and 4 time zones. It makes the cost to get there daunting. Today, FIFA released the price of each match ticket. The cheapest are in Category 4, but in Dallas, where England start against Croatia, the few that went on sale sold out in the first ballot. The tickets left start from £200, and the England Supporters Club have called that a slap in the face.
Very naughty, yeah. That will ruin the atmosphere in the stadiums as well. And that's a lot of what football's about, isn't it? It's not just the prawn sandwich brigade sat in their corporate seats. You don't want those type of people down beyond the goal. You want people like the fans like me.
Well, even though this ballot is open for a month and there's no advantage to getting in there first, still this afternoon there is a long queue to access the website. We do, though, know some of the prices that have been released to some teams' supporters clubs, and they show that the cheapest ticket for the final is more than £3,000. You could get a ticket for the last World Cup final for less than £500.
I've always wanted to see Scotland in an actual World Cup, and I've not been lucky enough to do it yet. I had a budget of £7,000. I don't know if even I'll be able to keep within that. But for me, I just think they're pricing ordinary fans out of football there.
When we did get on the site, we saw how much the tickets were. Even for the group games, they go beyond £500. FIFA is yet to comment on criticism of their prices. The ballot is open until the 13th of January. And for a World Cup of this size, the ticket price is just the start. Joe Linsky, BBC News.
Now, this is the moment that US Marines boarded an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela in a dramatic raid in the Caribbean this week. Venezuela has some of the world's largest reserves of oil, but for a number of years it has been subject to US sanctions that restrict the export of oil. Ships themselves, including the skipper that was seized, have also been sanctioned. The Trump administration is piling the pressure onto the Venezuelan president Nicolás Maduro over what the US calls his illegitimate regime. There have now been more than 20 American military strikes against Venezuelan boats believed to be smuggling drugs, and the US says it will intercept more Venezuelan ships carrying oil. Here's our North America editor, Sarah Smith.
2 helicopters launched from a US aircraft carrier stationed in the Caribbean hovered over the large tanker as troops used ropes to descend onto the deck. The remarkable video was shared on social media by the American Attorney General. Moving around the ship, guns drawn, we can see 10 US Marines and 10 members of an elite Coast Guard unit specially trained in high-risk law enforcement procedures. The Trump administration said the large ship was carrying sanctioned oil from Venezuela and Iran. It is now destined for an American port, and the White House has confirmed it will follow the necessary legal process to seize the oil on board.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually.
Well, what happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
The US has also recently attacked more than 20 Venezuelan boats they say were attempting to smuggle drugs into America, calling the smugglers narco-terrorists. It's all part of a high-pressure campaign against the left-wing president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro. He denounced the seizure of the tanker as an act of international piracy and, unusually, dedicated a song to those who don't want war with the US.
Don't worry, be happy. La 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 la. Don't worry, be happy.
Maria Corina Machado, the Venezuelan opposition leader, made a surprise appearance in Oslo, where she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize after over a year in hiding. She believes it is the flow of drugs and smuggling of illegal oil that funds the Maduro regime and keeps it in power.
And what sustained the regime is a very powerful and funded, strongly funded repression system. Where does that funds come from? Well, from drug trafficking, from the black market of oil, from arms trafficking, for human trafficking.
Ms. Machado went into hiding after last year's presidential election in Venezuela, when her candidate appeared to win, but Maduro refused to relinquish power. She endorses Donald Trump's actions as he seeks to change the regime governing her country. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Washington.
An ivory elephant and a ship's lantern are among 600 artefacts relating to the British Empire and Commonwealth that have been stolen from Bristol Museum in what police say was a high-value raid. Detectives are trying to trace 4 men caught on CCTV at the end of September. Hal Griffith reports from Bristol.
An ivory elephant inlaid with ebony and a belt plate from the East India Company. Just some of the 600 items collected from former colonial and Commonwealth countries which have disappeared. They were taken from Bristol Museum's archive stores in 2 raids the vast majority in the second. More than 2 months on, the theft has only just been made public.
They are items which were collected over 150 years, so it's a big culturally significant loss, and that's the real value to this collection.
These are the 4 men the police are looking for. Officers say they've carried out a significant search of closed-circuit camera footage. Those CCTV images show them making their getaway from here in the early hours of the morning 11 weeks ago. The question now is whether any of those hundreds of artefacts can ever be recovered.
I think we know it comes from the Commonwealth Institute collections.
For specialists, the items represent a significant loss, but how much financial gain they'll bring isn't clear.
A lot of this material would be unique, irreplaceable, of massive historical significance, national and international significance, but not necessarily of huge monetary value, so it's a little bit perplexing.
The collection captured an era of complex and contentious history, one the police hope the public can help them restore. Howell Griffith, BBC News, Bristol.
More than 1,000 French police have been deployed in Marseille this week, France's second biggest city, to try to deal with a multi-billion-pound drugs trade that is plaguing parts of the city. Children are increasingly being drawn into violent gangs, often by social media. Our correspondent Andrew Harding has been to the southern port city. His report includes some graphic images.
The beguiling port of Marseille has always had its dark side. But the city's notorious drugs trade has taken a chilling turn. At night, in poor neighbourhoods here, something close to chaos. Rival gangs, heavily armed, often just teenagers, fighting over turf. And suddenly, nobody feels safe. This young gang member was recruited when he was just 15.
And bullet holes patched up now.
And soon shot by rivals, a sign of the soaring tensions here. In the last few years, everything has changed, he says. There are no more rules. The bosses are using young people, paying them next to nothing. It's anarchy. Among the latest victims, 15-year-old Adele. A bullet to the head. His body then set on fire. Local school children filming his charred remains. No wonder many in Marseille, even lawyers like this woman, are too scared to talk on camera.
We are all afraid here now. It's clear that the drugs gangs are in control. I have to protect my family.
We're seeing increasingly youngsters, teenagers, involved in the gangs now. Tell me about that.
Yes, so many youngsters are forced into it. They're forced into debt, locked up, made to work, beaten. It's a form of slavery.
French police rush to a poor neighbourhood. They call this bombarding the gangs, trying to limit their operations. Critics say it's ineffective. In a stairwell, they detain an 18-year-old who immediately begs the police to arrest him, simply to help him escape from a gang. The French police are making hundreds of arrests like this, but despite the crackdown, they are, it seems, losing the war against a network of chaotic gangs that are staffed to some extent by a growing army of brutalized children. In the cellar, the police find traces of a drug industry now worth up to 7 billion euros across France. So what's driving all this? The far right cites uncontrolled immigration, but experts point to entrenched poverty, soaring drug use and, increasingly, social media. Just look at TikTok and similar sites, crowded now with adverts, and not just for drugs, but with job offers too. Promises here of up to 500 euros a day for selling hashish or cocaine.
People think this is an El Dorado. We have a lot of youngsters recruited on social media. They come here thinking they'll make easy money, but it often ends in misery, violence, even death. These gangs have no limits. They torture, they enslave, but we must not allow panic to take hold.
But the fear and the anger are real and growing. This protest, a reaction to a new low, the murder of a 20-year-old trainee policeman, almost certainly killed because his older brother, leading the march here, is a prominent campaigner against the drug gangs. He's now obliged to live under police guard.
Should I have made my brother leave the city? I will always struggle with the guilt. But I know there is another fight going on. A fight to the death. These killers, these thugs, once had a moral code. Not anymore.
The result? A precarious struggle for control of the city itself, its youth and its future. Andrew Harding, BBC News, Marseille.
Now, Newsnight is coming up shortly on BBC Two. Tonight it is Paddy O'Connell. Paddy.
Sophie, striking doctors during the superflu crisis could collapse the NHS. So says the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting. It's a shock intervention. Will it enrage doctors or will they call off the strike? We'll ask their union 3 minutes from now over on BBC Two and around the world on BBC News.
Paddy, thank you. The shortlist for this year's BBC Sports Personality of the Year award is out. The contenders are Lionesses goalkeeper Hannah Hampton, alongside her teammate Chloe Kelly, the golfer Rory McIlroy, who completed the Sports Grand Slam this year, also got a nod, as well as recently crowned British Formula One champion Lando Norris. The rugby player Ellie Kildunn has been shortlisted following her crucial role in England's Women's Rugby World Cup victory. Another in the running is the teenage world darts champion Luke Littler. And the 18-year-old has been in action tonight at Alexandra Palace in London as he begins the defence of his title at the 2026 World Darts Championship. He became the youngest ever world number one this year. Our sports correspondent Natalie Perks was there.
It's that time again, where adult-sized minions mix with eager Santas.
This is inspired. You've really thought about that.
I'm a couple of weeks early, though. The old sleigh got a bit lost.
And a Zally-Pally filled with fans ready to get Dartsmas started.
Cheers, mate.
There was no surprise who was the main draw.
Day one, you get to see the defending champion.
Yep, absolutely buzzing. Yeah, can't wait to watch Luke. It's going to go all the way again, I reckon.
You're not into the darts before this?
Not him, no, not really.
Dressed as an adult Dalmatian, purely for Luke Littler.
That's it, for the boy.
Luke Littler, of course. Always here for Luke.
All eyes were trained on the youngest world number one in history. A kiss for luck, and he was on his way. But Lithuania's Darius Labanauskas saw an opportunity to sow the seeds of doubt and took the first leg off the defending champ.
An excellent finish.
He continued asking all the right questions, but Littler somehow found the answers to calm the nerves and take the first set.
One dart. It's all he needs.
But as the nuke tried to pull away, Darius kept putting the brakes on. He made Luke work for the second set. Ultimately, it would all hinge on who could make his chances count. A 3-0 victory then, but one that didn't quite tell the full story.
A resigned look on Lisa Ashton's face.
For the first time in history, 5 women have spots here. But Lisa Ashton lost again on the big stage tonight. Former champion, the bully boy, Michael Smith, living up to his nickname.
That's a decent performance from Michael Smith.
The night, though, belonged to the main man. After a year in which the prince cemented his status as the king, Luke Littler is off the mark. Natalie Perks, BBC News, Alexandra Palace.
Now, have a look at this rare footage. Cameras physically attached to killer whales have captured extraordinary images of what scientists say is cooperative hunting. The whales working with white-sided dolphins to catch salmon. The scientists say their findings, published in the journal Nature Scientific Reports, are the first recorded evidence of these two species hunting together. And to the skydiver now in Australia, who has had a very lucky escape, because this is the moment that his parachute opened early and he got caught on the plane's tail. He was left dangling mid-air at 15,000 feet, but then decided to cut the strings of the parachute that had got tangled, and he was able to free himself before deploying his reserve chute, which thankfully meant he was able to eventually have a safe landing at the site in Queensland. Terrifying. Let's have a look at the weather now. Darren Bett.
Thanks very much, Sophie. A change of fortunes on the way for tomorrow. There was some sunshine around today and it was mild once again. That came ahead of this band of cloud here, which is moving very slowly eastwards, bringing with it a little rain. Following on from that, something a bit cooler as well. Here's where we've got the rain at the moment then. That will stumble its way further into England and Wales. Clearer skies following into Western Scotland, particularly Northern Ireland. So here, maybe the risk of a pinch of frost, one or two short-lived mist and fog patches as well. But elsewhere, where we keep the cloud, it is going to be an awful lot milder. But following on from that cloud, it looks like it's going to be a generally dry and sunny day for Scotland and Northern Ireland tomorrow. And we'll get the sunshine coming out in Wales and Western England as that band of cloud and light rain or drizzle pushes across the Midlands towards eastern England. Ahead of that, in the southeast, temperatures could still reach 13 degrees, but further north and west, even with the sunshine, it is going to be a bit cooler than it's been of late, but only for a short while. Chilly start to the weekend, perhaps, but there is milder winds coming in from the Atlantic, stronger winds as well. The winds will pick up again during Saturday, bringing cloud and rain to Scotland and Northern Ireland. Heavy rain over the hills of western Scotland. We're likely to find England and Wales will be dry. A bit more cloud coming into the northwest, but plenty of sunshine through the Midlands towards the southeast. Temperatures widely into double figures, so back up to double figures for Scotland and Northern Ireland, even though we've got the wind and the rain. And there's more wet and windy weather around on Sunday as well, not just for Scotland and Northern Ireland, just poking a little further into England and Wales. There'll be a bit more cloud through the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast. But again, here it is likely to be dry, some sunshine at times. It looks like Sunday is going to be very mild. We've got temperatures of 13 or 14 Celsius. Back to you, Sophie.
Darren, thank you. That's it from us on the BBC News at 10. Time now for the news where you are. Good night.